Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Coffee Convos. I have with me today Dr. Kermit Jones. We'll give him a big round of applause. Thank you for being with us.
I'm happy to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Jones is running with the Democratic Party for the election to U.S. House for the California 3rd Congressional District, and his opponent is Kevin Kiley. I need to tell everyone at the top here that we asked Kevin Kiley to be part of these conversations, and he declined. It doesn't mean that we like him any less. We're fair to everybody. We just want to let you know that we tried to get Kevin Kiley to be here, and he did not want to. But Dr. Jones, we're glad that you're here. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure, John. Like I said, thanks so much for having me. I am a physician, been a doctor for the last 17 years, a doctor in this community for the last 5. And prior to that, also served in the Navy as a flight surgeon with the Marine Helicopter Squadron, deployed to Iraq twice. Grew up on a small farm with 50 head of Black Angus cattle, and I just learned a lot of, community-based work there. My mom was a home health nurse. So she's the one that inspired me to become a doctor. And I have an 8-year-old and 3-year-old, been married for about the past 10 years and, just running for Congress because I think, people are ready for people with real leadership and service experience that want to actually serve the communities that they come from.
You grew up on a farm, you were saying, and am I right that you grew up in Michigan?
Yes, you are. Yeah, I grew up on a small farm in rural Michigan. Like I said, 50 head of Black Angus cattle, some hogs, and we eventually made that a large blueberry growing operation as part of the Great Lakes blueberries. So you probably, if you've eaten blueberries at Costco, may have come across some blueberries that came from our farm.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. My wife and I and our family, we spent 11 years in Jackson, Michigan. So.
Oh, wow. So you're familiar with the Midwest and all the wonderful winters that we get.
I am familiar with it. I absolutely love it, as a matter of fact. But so, Dr. Jones, this whole program is designed for us just to get to know people. It's not a platform for politics. We started out interviewing artists and entrepreneurs and business owners. And we kind of stumbled into politics when we started interviewing people running for school board and city council, and now we're talking to people running for Congress just because it has hit a nerve and people have enjoyed watching this. So this is a chance to get to know you. Why don't you tell us, growing up on a farm, spending time in the Navy, being a successful doctor, why politics and why now?
No, I think those are great questions. I look back at my childhood, and what my parents taught me. My dad grew up in rural Arkansas, also farming. My mom grew up in Chicago, and they talked about how this country that we love, my mom just passed away recently, is one that has steadily been improving. And so they taught us the importance of communities working together. They taught us the importance of hard work, giving back, building something, and kind of what separates us, I think, from a lot of other countries in the world, and why so many people come here for these opportunities. So when I thought about all the efforts that my parents put in me to become a doctor, seeing my mom, as a nurse, and then eventually serving in the military to try to give back to my country and take care of people, that answered the call, and in some instances paid the ultimate sacrifice. I think we have a great country full of people that care, but we don't have a lot of people that have kind of gone or taken the leap from serving in their communities and then deciding to serve in Congress for the people, or elected office rather, for the people that actually put them there. And so when you look at the I guess, percentage of people that appreciate Congress, or the approval rating, it's around 7%. So I think, people feel as if they're failing and they're doing things wrong. And we just need, real life people with real life experiences there to try to help us out. And so that's why I decided to run.
Can you explain for us as best as you can, because obviously you have not spent time there yet. Can you, what do you imagine a day in the life of a congressperson looks like?
Oh, I mean, that's an interesting question. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I can't tell you specifically what a day in the life is like, but I do know the nature of the job, is that they're supposed to uh, not just take the inquiries and issues of the people of their district, and as you know, there are over 435 members of Congress, and advocate for those. But they're also supposed to work together to represent issues that affect our entire country. So, I can tell you that looking back, over the last few years, from things as varied as making sure that people have access to healthcare. I've seen members of Congress and the state assembly in some instances do well and not so well in that. Voting on, how we spend things as a government and what we invest in and how we invest in people and how we move forward. So, philosophically, I can tell you that's what a day in the life should be. Whereas, hopefully they're getting enough time to sometimes, speak to their family and maybe take a break to exercise and eat and these other types of things. But at the end of the day, that's what they should be doing there. And that's, what I would like to do if I had the privilege of serving.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I looked at the map earlier today, the boundaries of the district that you are running in, and it's huge, and
It's the biggest district in California. Yeah.
yeah, and it's diverse. Knowing all of those cities and counties that lie within those boundaries, what's your approach going to be? Or maybe I should ask, what are the top concerns for this district that is so big and deep and wide and diverse?
Yeah, John. I mean, my approach is to be the advocate for people that I think that they deserve and they've earned. Go out there, listen to their issues. I was a few months ago at a sawmill in Plumas and then a biomass plant. Or, just last week, I was in Alpine, seeing some areas that have been burned out by the Tamarack fire and how there are many people, whether it's in the Mammoth Lakes area or Forest Hills right now with respect to the mosquito fire, that, their fire insurance has gone from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month. And they need someone to fight for them, not a month, sorry, a year. Need someone to fight for them to save money, especially with, the rising costs. And people that I think can bring, in some instances, groups together that may think that they have a lot that aren't in common. We've been endorsed by PORAC, the Peace Officers Research Association, the largest police officers union in the state. We've been endorsed by the California Professional Firefighters. And so when I'm out there talking to people in the community, I say, I think we need a different approach, as a moderate Democrat. I know you had, described me as part of the Democratic Party, but as a moderate Democrat, I think we need more people that care about moderation and care about bringing people together as opposed to being the extremes on either side.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think I was just, reading the description off the internet. That does bring up a question for me, since you are running, as part of the Democratic Party. What are the main issues that separate you and your opponent who is running as a Republican?
Yeah, I'm running first as a leader and someone who has a record of service and doesn't care about party. I'm running as someone who cares about putting people first. When I first started this, I seriously contemplated running as an independent. But, in our broken political system, you can't raise $4 to $5 million as an independent. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is until we get campaign finance reform. So I decided, the best way for me to run as myself is to run as, pick a party, run as a moderate, and run as who I am. Like I said, someone who cares about our country, has served in the military, and wants to focus on the issues and the people, not the party. So when I talk about, what separates me, I talk about the fact that I'm the only candidate talking about a federal fire insurance plan. I'm the only candidate as a doctor who's treated 20,000 patients and never asked the patient whether they're a Democrat or Republican or independent. It's just my job to take care of you. And so for me, when I'm out there and I'm focusing on issues like women's access to reproductive health, that's a very serious thing to me. I've treated patients, women who would have died if they didn't have access to reproductive health. So that's not a political football to me, and getting things right, like our COVID policy, is really important. So, I think what separates me is I've treated people that needed things like abortions to save their lives. And, my opponent, Kevin Kiley, has voted and advocated for women to, face, criminal related sanctions if they have sex outside of marriage. I mean, that's ridiculous. Or, has said in his debate, which you can find on KCRA3, that he's not for a woman's right to choose. He's pro-life, so to speak, under all circumstances. And so when you have a woman who, or that 10-year-old girl in Ohio that would, had been raped, forcing someone to go through that trauma later on, I think that's what separates me from someone like him. He's a career politician. This is the 5th office he's run for 5 years. And I tell people where I'm from, growing up on the farm and having my dad teach me, he said, you interview for the job you want. This is the job I want. So this is the interview that I'm doing with everyone in the district. I'm not running for one thing to run for something else. That's why people get turned off by politics and figure that the system's broken.
Thank you for your honesty on that. You mentioned the pandemic, COVID-19. Anytime I've heard you talk, anytime I've read anything that you've said, you talk in terms of when the next pandemic comes, as if it is imminent. How, as a doctor in Congress, will you work on policies based on lessons that you've learned through this pandemic that we are really still feeling the effects of?
No, we are, and we're going to feel the effects for quite some time. Look, the virus doesn't play politics, and no viruses. There are no bacteria that decide that they're going to attack, one political party versus the next. So I'm going to focus on those things that keep us healthy and safe. When you look at my website, I have the most comprehensive healthcare plan of anyone who's ever run for Congress, and that's because I talk about increasing substantially the amount of investment that we put in public health, increasing substantially the way that we approach, mental health related issues as well. Making sure that, when we have that next pandemic or that next thing that affects us, that we keep businesses open. I think we learned a lot this last time around. We didn't know what we were dealing with in the beginning, but people want their public officials to be honest. If they say, look, we don't know exactly what the threat is, but maybe some places, would need to shut down temporarily. That was reasonable. But having, the Walmart stay open and the small mom and pop businesses close, that's not reasonable. So I'd say the lessons that we learn moving forward is we figure out how we treat the next pandemic faster, how we keep each other safe more effectively, and how we keep our businesses open and keep people able to interact with people in a safe way.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I was going to ask you to highlight some key bullet points from your health plan, your healthcare proposal that I saw on your website. So I appreciate you mentioning some of those. My wife and I spent some time.
Yeah, John, I think the easiest, sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
It's fine, man.
Well, I was going to say, I think the easiest way to describe it is it's a healthcare plan that focuses on increasing your quality and choice, being able to get care where you live, and reducing cost. Those are the major things to think about. So, it's like that old adage is, a stitch in time saves 9. So that's why I talk about investing in public health and making it so that we have a solid public health structure, making it so that you understand what you would pay in the healthcare system before you pay it. A lot of people get surprise bills, negotiating down drug prices, continuing an innovation pipeline. The reason that my mom was able to stay alive for 4 years with stage 4 lung cancer, even though she never smoked, was because of innovations that came out of the NIH. So if anyone says that, investments in research and basic research is a waste, like some members of Congress have said, then they honestly don't have a family member that's required those types of investments to live. And that's sad.
Thank you.
You were going to speak of your own. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were going to speak of your own conversation about healthcare.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was actually going to change the topic, so I'm glad that you added that little addendum there at the end. I guess in a way, I was going to touch on healthcare because I was going to talk about all the smoke in the air. I go back to the fires a little bit. My wife and I, the last few days, we decided just to get away. And we were getting calls from home wondering if we own a restaurant, as you know, and they were wondering if they should shut down because of all the smoke in the air. And before we knew it, I mean, in just a flash, the winds blew everything our way. We were up at Lassen, and it felt like I had, put down 4 packs of Marlboros within the course of an hour. And then it cleared a little bit the next day, and we were walking through the effects of the Dixie fire that burned like over 60%, almost 70% of Lassen. And there's signs.
It almost burned 1 million acres. Yep.
It's insane. So
yeah,
what are some, you talk about the endorsements you have, you mentioned fire. What are some practical things? I mean, I've read articles about people not even wanting to move out to rural areas anymore because they're scared to death. What are some of the practical things that you are thinking about that you would fight for with this huge problem that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of different ways we need to look at this, John. One, we need to stop the bleeding, just like a triage standpoint. And then we need to lower the risk of this happening again. Stopping the bleeding is a federal fire insurance plan, and I don't know how your business is, but I talk to people in the district that used to pay $1,000 a year. Now they're paying $10,000 a year. I mean, so it's not sustainable in this environment where, everything's costing too much. The cost of a dozen eggs is twice what it was last year. So there's that. Also, I've always argued that it's more effective to prevent something from happening in many instances than to try to fix it when it happens. You mentioned the Dixie fire that burned over 900,000 acres. Some people's homes were burnt down then, and they still haven't been bought. They still haven't been, built back by FEMA. So if we get a situation in which we increase the funding for the Forest Service Bureau of Land Management, pay the wages and the training for people to do some of the fuel reduction, the prescribed burns, the mechanical thinning we need to do, and then also give people tax breaks. I am 100% for, if the government needs money for certain things, that makes sense. But what would be smart, instead of having unfunded mandates where they say, hey, you got to do 100 feet of defensible space and figure out, how to come up with $8,000 to $9,000 to do that on your own, give someone a tax break for that. If you lower the risk of your house burning down, which we know if you, do what you're supposed to do with respect to your roof and the defensible space, that saves everyone money. It saves the firefighters, the risk of needing to go out there and stop the fire at your house. It saves your house. So that is an investment that would be worth, instead of taking more taxpayers out of people's pockets, give them that money back so they can actually protect their homes. Those are the types of policies that I advocate for, just practical, down-to-earth policies that aren't political in any way, shape, or form. They're just the practical things that people are looking for.
Good. Thank you. I'm going to change the topic again since we don't have a whole lot of time. The president recently announced this forgiveness of student loans. Where do you stand on that? And do you think that there's alternatives that, people talk about things like service to the public and in exchange for forgiveness of loans or anything? What are your thoughts on the whole student loan issue?
John, I know there are a lot of people out there hurting because they can't afford a lot of things with respect to education. And I think the broader discussion is we're still not talking about how to lower that cost. There's never any discussion about why it, went from $20,000 a year at some universities to $80,000 a year. So that's one thing that I think needs to be brought into the discussion. I would have done things differently than the president. When I tell people I'm willing to push back against Democrats that would want to defund the police, and I'm willing to push back against Republicans that want to criminalize abortion. I'm willing to push back against the president in a situation in which, look, I went into the military to serve my country and also get funding to help pay for medical school. I know people that did AmeriCorps. I know people that did, the peace service. I have a plan, and it's on my website, that talks about exactly with what you said. You do 2 years of community service, or even 3, Some of that may be that you get training to be a volunteer firefighter or anything like that, or to help, with respect to some of the fuel reduction. You get in-state tuition for that. That is a way that you invest in your communities, and you also get something for it, But I think the situation that we have now, where there are people that decided they didn't want to go to college, and they're looking for, a good tech job, being a radiology tech or something. There's no loan forgiveness for that, and there should be, or people that paid off their loans and they're like, hey, I paid off my loans and did everything right. There's no loan forgiveness for that either. So I think we need to expand those programs in which people, give and then get something, as opposed to the program that was just rolled out.
Okay, thank you. It's funny. I asked a bunch of my friends what questions they would ask you, and this is one. So I'm going to ask this of you. The Ukraine war remains high on the list of important topics for Americans, and as inflation continues and the economy remains in at least a stagnant position, if not downward, in the U.S. and Europe. Where will you stand on continuing support for the U.S. efforts to assist in Ukraine?
My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. That was an unprovoked war of aggression. I do think we need to see exactly what that support will look like in the future. And it really depends upon the facts on the ground. I think there are some things that should continue, whether we're giving military support or not. We should continue to help Ukrainian families, especially women and children. I know some have relocated into the Northern California, Sacramento area to come to a safe area. That's who we are as a country. We try to protect people. And we also need to continue to strengthen NATO as well. I think the whole reason this happened is because we do realize that, one of the largest organizations to fight back against aggression was weakened during the last administration. But in terms of what the character of that continued support will look like, it needs to be based upon the facts on the ground. But I will say, and end with this, is what I don't want to see and what I wouldn't support is for us to put billions of dollars into other countries and not put billions of dollars back here into our country as well. So, going back to what I just said in the very beginning, we have 20 million acres in California that need to be either prescribed burned or mechanically thinned or converted to biomass. When I see people, even some of them that work in my campaign, evacuated from their homes in Forest Hill, I think we have problems here that we need to make sure that we address. We can't say we're going to send billions of dollars overseas and then with the problems we have here say that we don't have any money for it. That's not right.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, switching topics again. I've been wearing Doc Martens since the 90s. That's because I can't get the grunge movement out of my system. I hear that you wear combat boots every day. I'm sure that your reasons are much more stellar than mine for wearing my Docs. Why don't you tell us about that? Why are you wearing those boots every day?
I was like, everyone has their styles, I guess. Well, look, admittedly, I didn't wear them every day before I started a campaign. But since this campaign to me, and I tell people I'm not a politician, I'm a doctor, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm someone who cares about my community, I'm an American. I started wearing them on the campaign trail because I realized how important having good representation and service and leadership is to our country. It is our country. It is our democracy, And so just like those brave men and women that I served with in Iraq, some of them who didn't come back home, that they laced up their boots every single day to protect our country. I'm lacing up my boots every single day to protect our community here. So it reminds me when I wear the Navy hat and I wear the same boots that I wore in Iraq, how important this is. And it grounds me. So that's literally why I wear them. And it gives me strength and it just gives me purpose.
Hashtag the boots are a metaphor. There you go. Thank you for that. All right. We're going to start wrapping this up because I have a free version of Zoom that only allows me so many minutes. So And I don't apologize for that. And I know you have things to do. Um, we've been doing this thing with all of our interviews with politicians, and I didn't realize until today how ridiculous this was. We've been doing this thing called Politicians Answer Medical Questions, and because it was funny to throw it in to ask a medical question of somebody who shouldn't know the answer and get their best, WebMD answer. But now I'm talking to a doctor, so I don't even know what to ask you. So here's a twist on the Politicians Answer Medical Questions. The twist is this: what is the best song that you can think of that mentions a doctor?
Ooh, that is an interesting twist. The first thing, I'll tell you, the first thing that popped into my head was there's something called like Dr. Jones, and I can't remember I just remember the refrain because it was like a cute song that my wife would play when we first started dating. So that's the first song that pops into my head, but I'm trying to think of another doctor song. I mean, the odd thing is I only think of the lyrics, like Dr. Feelgood, is a good one, and stuff like that. But yeah, it usually is something that's more hilarious to think about when I'm actually partying.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you gravitated to a Motley Crue song as opposed to the Kiss song that first came to my head, which was Dr. Love. And maybe your wife will sing that to you sometime.
Maybe. Well, I was gonna say, if I get home early enough, I'm not late on the trail like I usually am, But yeah, Motley Crue is good.
Dr. Jones, thank you for your time today. Thanks for letting us have a little bit of fun with this at the end. And you've been sitting in your vehicle this entire time because I know you're on your way to pick up your son. I know you're very busy and committed to a bunch of different people. So thank you. Is there anything that you would like to say as we send off here?
John, I want to thank you for the opportunity again. Like you said, I'm going to run in there and watch the end of my 8-year-old's jiu-jitsu. And to your point, I try to do those things to try to stay as relevant in my kids' life as I can, because they didn't ask for me to run for Congress. I'm doing this hopefully to make a better future for them and other kids like them, you and me. But yeah, it's always fun to kind of take these little breaks and talk to people like you and hopefully earn your vote and many of the other people like you. And then after that, let's work together and get some stuff done.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Take care, John.
Peace.